Go ahead, Michael. Tell a little about the button thing.
Oh, well, I just always point out the fact that great book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where at one point some alien race needs to put a throughway past our galaxy and the Earth is in the way. And so in a moment's notice, all of a sudden our Earth is gone and that one guy was, saved off the planet. Great book, a good perspective. But just remember, the most important thing to take with you out into the universe is a towel.
Oh, how about a toothbrush, too?
A towel and a toothbrush, yeah. No, it was funny the way he wrote it, but a towel.
I don't think you need to take any condoms.
Yeah.
It is an amazing book, and I love the representation that they put on the screen. It was absolutely hilarious to see how it panned out.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Chris, our 2 hours are up. Michael, I need you to hang on for about a minute or 2 or 3 after, to talk about a couple things. Hey, Chris, tell everybody how they can find your great show and how often a week is it on, and give all that information out.
We're on every Friday at www.bbsradio.com. Station 2, it's called Paranormal Truth and Reality. It runs at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This week actually is, I do one every 3 months where it's just listening to me, so hopefully I don't bore listeners that tune in, but it's called Let's Think About This, where we talk about topics in the paranormal and the reality of the paranormal around us and how you should physically actually look at it as opposed to all the myth and the non-reality that's going on out there right now, so that you can really dig in a little bit. You can also find me on Paranormal Truth and Reality on Twitter. You can look me up on Facebook, which is Christopher Houston, obviously. I air a lot of information on my show. Generation Truth is just starting up, but in the next year you'll be able to type in GenerationTruthTV.com, and there'll be some promos there on what we're doing with our documentaries, how we're going about it. We're going to be doing a lot of amazing things, from covering the paranormal culture today in an aspect like a lot of people are interested in, and you've seen in the past, for instance, Trekkies and the Star Trek generation, the Comic-Cons and the comic generation, and so forth. We wanted to bring to light in a 2-hour documentary that hopefully will get on the Discovery Channel if everything works out right, covering the community of the paranormal, why people are so fascinated with it, why they dive into it, the culture, the conventions, and so forth. We're also going to be covering the scientific end of things a little bit with some short documentaries and a short 6-part situation where we sit down with some fairly well-known scientists, quantum physicists, and so forth, and dig into the real in-depth science and history of the paranormal, and where it started and where it is today, and the rise of the population, or I like to call it the popular phase, rise of the popular phase and the downfall of the popular phase to the downfall of the science phase, and when parapsychology left in the late 1970s to early 1980s. Plus a few other things. We've got a couple of 30-minute slots that are going to be very interesting, that are conversational. A radio show ourselves coming on so that we can cover a lot of different guests that are welcome to join. So keep an eye out and look for Generation Truth, Paranormal Truth and Reality, and WCGT, which will be on the airwaves in September if everything works out.
Oh, great. Well, Chris, it has been really great having you on the show. I enjoy talking to another paranormal talk show host. I mean, if we all have our own views, and it was refreshing to get yours. You even thought some of the same feelings I feel about the paranormal. So, I mean, that is great. So I really enjoyed having you on the show.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for your scientific perspective. That was wonderful, Chris.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Everybody's always welcome to attend the conferences and situations here in Ohio. There's a lot of them you can look up. I'm not at one currently. I think the next one is going to be in Zanesville in September, but I usually speak at them, and I'm located there. You're always welcome to look up the show when it's on. And, of course, I'd love to come back to your show somewhere along the line. If you ever have a spot, just give me a ring. I'd be glad to pop back in.
Well, anytime you want to come on and do any updates, okay, anything, you want to promote about your show, I have no qualms, email me and we'll get you on.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate the time, guys.
Okay, well, thank you, and you have a great evening.
You guys enjoy your evening. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
So anyway, I just want the listeners to know what's going on between me and your group, the UFO I-Team. And I think that's really awesome for my network that is just now starting to grow into just more than my show. I mean, besides your show on Sunday, I don't want to say who it is, but I do have a lady host that's going to be coming on the later part of August to fill in Saturdays. And she's quite famous in her own way. And she's going to be on our network now. And why don't we talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with your UFO I-Team?
Well, I'm just pleased that you've decided. We've both decided to partner up here with UFO I-Team and Night Dreams Talk Radio to live stream our audio from our meetings that we actually put together every Wednesday night. So on Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., you will be able to tune in to nightdreamstalkradio.com and hear and listen to the UFO I-Team's weekly meetings and some of the intense and interesting subjects that we talk about, as well as the sighting reports we review and some of the projects that we're currently working on. So I'm excited. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Gary, to be a part of the network.
Well, and too, it doesn't really compete with what you do on Facebook Live, because a good thing about this is they can download it, off of our website and play it anytime they want. And we, like I said, we get a lot of truckers listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio and going onto the website and downloading and, listening, because they get lonely out there at night. And, a lot of the truckers, Michael told me that they're tired of the terrestrial talk shows in the paranormal, because it's basically the same guests every month, the same topics. And they said that on Night Dreams, what they like about it is they never know what the guest is going to be, and how serious is going to be in the paranormal, like last night we talked about past life regressions and past lives, and then the night before we were talking again about a trucker that, got into believing UFOs when he was out in the middle of out in Texas. And, he was going to where they pump the oil, from the tanks into his truck. And he noticed, a cow, a couple hundred feet going up in the sky. And he was looking, and he didn't see no helicopter or anything. And he didn't see no chains, ropes, or anything. And he said this cow was like struggling like mad, like trying to get away as it's being, going up in the sky. And then all of a sudden it disappeared. And he said he's seen a couple of strange things like that. That got him into believing about UFOs, because, if there wasn't a helicopter, and he said he knows what the sound of helicopters are. And he said in all his years being a truck driver, seeing a cow. Can you imagine what it'd be like? Michael, you're out there, right? Going through, kind of a desert area out in Texas, going to an oil field, 30, 40 miles away from town. And all of a sudden you're looking out your driver's side window and you see this cow floating up towards the sky. Oh,
I just love those trucker stories, Gary, because those are still the cowboys of America, and they're on the road constantly. They see things that most of us never have a chance to see, mostly if they're running at night and those kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to being able to hook up with that audience on a weekly basis from the UFO I-Team's broadcast over Night Dreams Talk Radio, as well as your worldwide audience in Europe, the UK, even the Eastern Bloc countries. You are giving us an opportunity to reach an audience we would never reach before, and I'm excited to get some feedback from the worldwide audience as well.
Well, like I said, it hit me in the middle of the night the other night. I going, gee, here's Michael doing, a paranormal show on Sundays, right? And naturally he's tied into UFOs. He has Peter Davenport on his show, and guest on. Of course, you're going to deviate about it on this weekend, talking about Paul McCartney. Is he the real one? But,
Right.
you're into UFOs big time. And that's when it hit me. I go, wow, the audience out there from, the UFOI team, there's going to be people that are going to want to hear what you guys are talking about. Some of the stories, I'll be honest with you. The first 1 or 2 times I ever tuned you in, and that was even before I met Kevin, I kind of didn't really pay attention to it. I kind of looked at it and went off because, I'm busy. And then after, Kevin introduced us two together, I made a point of listening to your, meetings at Denny's, where they have great coffee, by the way.
Right.
I got hooked on it. I mean, people talking about, UFOs and sightings, and guy coming on your show showing, maybe a portal with a UFO going into it or coming out of it. That all was kind of intriguing. And that guy, it came in while you were at Denny's and handed you that packet where you thought you were going to be sued. You're getting served, and it turned out to be blueprints or diagrams on how to propel a UFO. Have you ever heard anything more about that?
That is just a mystery, Gary. I've never heard any feedback from this gentleman. You would think that at one point we would get an email or some kind of a text message of asking us how we feel about the white paper that he dropped off to us, which was very technical oriented, by the way. It was about 40 pages long, small print, and had diagrams, the whole thing, and it purports to be the propulsion systems of how UFOs fly through the air and also through space. But we haven't heard a word from the guy yet.
Well, what really intrigued me is the word Mercury, because
Yes.
Before that happened, and I had the guests on twice now, and I think I'm going to have them on again in about a month from now. But when he was a kid in around 1967 or something like that, that he remembered in his town that his mom worked at the hospital. His father was a dispatcher for the local police department. They started getting phone calls that a UFO landed in the parking lot by the hospital. But by the time the police got, there, responded, and I guess a bunch of townspeople come running down there too, the UFO already took back off. But what was so interesting about it, how he described the circle 20, 30 feet around, it burnt a whole circle around all the way into the asphalt. And the asphalt was still smoking and burning when, the police got there and the people got there. But the interesting thing, it was found around there was a whole bunch droplets of mercury-like metal on the ground around, the burn marks. That was so interesting, because your diagrams, if I remember right, propelled, that one of the things that had in it was mercury.
Yeah, the vortex circulation of some kind of a liquid like mercury, supposedly, if you do it fast enough and the right temperature, actually reduces the gravitational effect of the actual craft. I've heard this before. We even came across this white paper. So you're right. That is a fascinating correlation from that one sighting report and then this white paper. I don't know how it works, but it's fascinating. And we're trying to get people to, some scientists, to review this document and see if there's anything that we can hook onto and research later on whether the veracity of this thing is correct or not.
Yeah, debunk it if it's not. If it's real, then that's interesting. But going back with this guy, too, he said the next day there was a town about 30 miles away which had a lake in it. And that they all of a sudden, the next night, they got a report from that local jurisdiction and witnesses. And I did verify that that there was a sighting of a UFO coming out of the